Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome. We are so glad that you're here. My name is Katie Gideon. I will be the on-camera facilitator for this event. I am dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland. Very happy to be here. But in the chat, you will see my co-facilitator, Jen O, who is in Texas. We are the Forever and Always Team Texas because I relocated from Texas over here now almost 2 years ago, which is wild. Everything goes by so fast. And I think it also leads into I cannot believe how fast April went to the point that we are now here in May, setting up our first full week in May. And I can't believe it. So, welcome everybody. We are glad that you're here. I am seeing some of our returning socialers. Welcome. It is always great to see your all's names in the chat. But if you are new, or if this is maybe your first social for a setup, your first social in a while, we would love to hear you shout that out in the chat. If you want to share with everyone in the chat, make sure that the chat is set to everyone. The hosts and panelists is the default. That comes to just myself and Jen, and we can always helpful to answer any questions if you don't want the larger group to know, or if you just want to share. I'm a big on the like getting something out into the universe, but maybe you don't want to share it with the larger group. That's perfectly fine. Jen and I are here for that, but we know you probably want other folks' opinion as well. So just double check that you have that set. We always love our folks that come back and seeing you again. I know it was Maya that made the metaphor of Silk and Saunders kind of like a river. You know, we're always going to be here. We're always going to be flowing. We're always going to be doing our thing. You can come in true fashion, dip a toe, come for the week, come for the weekend, stay for the year, grab your float, and come floating with us, or you can just kind of take what you need from each and every one of these sessions. And so, as always, please be kind and courteous to yourselves and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions, though we do love to talk about stickers. This is a pretty friendly group to kind of ask on those things. I know we share a lot of book recommendations, even app recommendations. So we certainly love those in moderation. And then always, while Jen and I have some information, we do not have everything, especially around specific accounts and those type of things. So we will most likely redirect all customer care inquiries to our team at hello@silkandsonder.com. And same thing with as we talk about some of the other things that we have. The coaching AI option is still out there and available. So you can definitely reach out to them if you've got questions or concerns. Same thing with if you want to try out the new digital version. We also now have digital stickers to kind of go with those. So if you have kind of questions or want to provide feedback on those, we're in the phase where we want to hear it. And so that'll all go to hello@silkandsonder.com. And then, as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. That's why we're here. That's why these socials are so much fun live. But you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. Full transparently, I've had a very up and down roller coaster of a week and not in the best way possible. So I have been in a mood. And because of that, I've had to kind of restructure some of my responses, knowing that I'm in a mood. And I think that's just the reality of it, is there going to be days where this is exactly what you need. There are days where this is going to be helpful. And then there are days that it's like, I want to be here, I want to brace everything, but there's going to be something that's going to be holding me back. So we will adapt, we will ask ourselves what we need, and we will work through it together. So, new month, new theme, simplicity. I think simplicity is such a wonderful transition from authenticity. So we've established this whole authenticity concept all through the month of April, embracing the alliteration, which just makes me so happy. But now carrying over into simplicity or simplifying kind of those things, I think works so great, especially as we come into a season shift. I am a summer person. My birthday's in the summer. So for me, I feel like I start to get a little antsy as we go to that summer sprint. That was when, especially when I was in school, it was like that's when you crammed in all the vacations. That was when everyone had so much time, but not any time, weirdly, I feel like. And same thing with, I feel like May is one of those months that everything's kind of wrapping up. with again having so much time, but not time, no time. Time becomes a weird concept in spring and summer. So my word of the year was kind of a back to basics. So this is also for me a great timing to kind of check back in with that. And so I came across these slides. The first one I did talk about in the monthly setup that I did with simplicity is about subtracting the obvious and adding the meaningful. And I always hate that, simplicity is not so simple, or same thing with like common sense is not so common. So the fact that subtracting the obvious should be something simple in and of itself. But sometimes that can be tricky, but then adding in the meaningful. But I think it's a really nice way to look at the how are you going to spend your energy? How do you want to spend your day? How do you want to spend your time? And that in and of itself is an act of simplicity. So that's kind of what I am dealing with. And also the fact that I am a science-minded person, analytics, the fact that if you can kind of give me a fun little equation that isn't math, but still equation form where I get, this plus this or this minus this equals a new something, that makes me really happy because that fits in my analytical brain. And then I am still embracing Snail Girl Spring. So it's the be like a snail, slower but surely. And so that I also think is a little bit of a simplicity moment is, as I said, I feel like I get a bit of that panic rush into the summer months, that this is my opportunity to take some of those smaller steps, slow down a little bit, be a little bit more intentional with some of that. Again, how I spend my time, how do I recharge my battery, how do I do all those prep works. So to me, it's like this overarching idea of simplicity, but I think it's also how do we bring in pieces or remove pieces to kind of do that. And so we're going to cover the first part of our simplicity mind map, and then we're going to do the rosebud thorn exercise on page 30. And then we'll move into those weekly setup pages on page 32 and 33 in your May journal. So exciting. First of the month means first mind map. So this is one of those things not printed in your journal. So you're going to get to kind of add your own creative spin to it. I have been on this like sticker combination kick and kind of this like vine. It was originally Christmas lights year round. It was fairy lights. So that's kind of been my vibe for my particular mind map. So a lot of people will use that last blank page. I know Jen went gung ho into the cookie cutters, and really you're just kind of creating a space to answer four different questions as we go through the weeks. These questions will be brought up at every weekly setup. So if you miss one, if you show up late, or if you have to leave a little bit early, we will include previous weeks in there as well. And you can always usually ask and get them in the Silk and Sonder app as well as those replays. But we're again going to embrace that theme of simplicity, and then we're going to be able to use a couple different lenses as we explore that thought of simplicity and how we can incorporate it into our potentially weekly setup. How can we incorporate it into our day to day? How can we incorporate it into our long term goals or even our mid range goals? So, with week one, we are starting with the question, what physical possessions do you own that no longer serve a purpose or bring you joy? I feel like it called me out on my lack of spring cleaning, but that's fine. And really and truly, I had to take a slightly different approach to this, and that's just because I have recently relocated over here. I am in a fully furnished apartment, so all of my stuff is not with me. So I had to go through that. What are the basic and simplified things that I need while living overseas? So you can absolutely ask yourself, what do you need? Do you want to focus on those physical possessions that you own that no longer serve a purpose or bring you joy? If that is kind of the boost that you need. But I also brought in some other ideas and other play on kind of the physical aspect, because then I thought this could also look at how you spend your physical energy each day. Like I said, I feel like I was all over the place. I've been a little bit scattered. I've got quite a bit of travel and commitments coming up. So for me, it was the idea of can I simplify my physical energy each day? Kind of looking at some of those routines. How can I kind of boost some of those things that I want that make me just simply happy? And then that's the same thing of kind of going hand in hand with that, like simplifying your schedule or for your physical presence. Um, the dreaded, is there a meeting that you probably don't need to be at? Those type of things. Is it something that you need there? Is it an event that you could do later? Is it something you could schedule later? Can you schedule it at another time? Or even it's the if it can you say no to something? So it's also kind of looking that from a scheduling tool, scheduling purpose. And then the other thing is, I feel like if you look into like the physical self-care, some simple steps, you get a lot of meditation, breathing exercises. So I thought this was a good maybe check-in opportunity for me, especially was, when was the last time you were connected with your mind and body together? Like I said, I feel like I've been in just a weird headspace when it comes to certain things, kind of a little bit detached in other situations. And so I kind of focused on that one as well. And then I also think of, physically being somewhere. So are there places or things that you can immerse yourself in that simply make you happy? Is that going outside? Is that being in your garden? Is that, taking a walk? Is that going on, the side quest to a lake that you like or a pond that you like? Some of those things. Can you shake up some of your maybe workouts and do them outside or go walk to the park? Kind of all of those things. So I thought that those were additional ideas on how to embrace physical simplicity. So I am going to stop talking. I am going to let you all share absolutely your physical simplicity thoughts and feelings, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everybody for sharing. Like I said, I know this particular question, in my opinion, was designed to lean a little bit in more into the spring and declutter. But then also seeing some of the readers. I definitely decluttered my book collection a couple of years ago at the insistence of my father. And I realized how sad it made me and that I regretted I regretted most of the ones that I got rid of, but not necessarily. I was like, there was one of those because I then realized that I was making far more intentional decisions about my book collection than I hadn't. So it was one of those things after that I refuse to do anything that someone has asked me to do with a collection that makes me so happy. So that kind of made me rethink of the decluttering component. And I think it's one of those like my mom was very sympathetic to like my plea and how it just bummed me out. But then I also saw that someone was having maybe a tough time with coming up with an answer for these. And I feel like the mind map can be great for whatever inspiration that you need. So to be honest, I went in a completely different direction than the questions that I've asked. Usually, past me comes up with these kind of great questions, and then present me ignores the questions and just puts down on paper what I was feeling when I wrote it at the time. And for me, it was a lot of mental and emotional things that were impacting my physical ability. You know, it's one of those things, my shoulders are up in my ears, wearing a earrings, my jaw is a little bit more clenched. And you know, when you start to feel even in your forearms a little bit more tense, so I was realizing that I needed to have a mental check-in because I was starting to show some of those physical responses to taking up too much mental and emotional space in my head. So that's actually what I used kind of in this direction. So the fact that you didn't come up with anything now, that is absolutely not a big deal. You can jot down some notes and you have the entire week to kind of come back and revisit it. But what I have found is that if I can't come up with an answer kind of in this moment, I've actually used it to frame something that I've needed to kind of sit with because really and truly, I don't think I would have acknowledged that kind of mental and emotional toll that was starting to kind of show itself physically if I hadn't took a moment to like check in with it. So I feel like keep that in mind. The mind maps can certainly be that simple. Here's a question, here's an answer, but you can also turn it again with those magic question of what do I need this week? What do I need right now? What do I need to put on the page with this moment? And that can be inspiration from the music, from, you know, what does the day look like, from stickers, any of those things. So you can find the inspiration from anywhere. So thank you all for sharing. Now we're going to be on page 30 in your May journal. This is the Rosebud Thorns, which gives us an opportunity to reflect on the previous week. So as it said, I was in a bit of mood last week. So while I appreciate the opportunity to then look at the Rosebud Thorn idea, it also gives me a point to kind of highlight some of those the good and the somewhat less good and maybe the not as good without always having to kind of spin myself back up on the not so great days that I had. So again, we're on page 30 in your May journal. For me, the rose, I had ordered a new dress that I was really excited to wear because I've been going to the office a little bit more, going to conferences. So I actually had a conference this past week up in Aberdeen. And so I got to wear two new dresses that I hadn't worn to a conference. One is like an older dress that I've had for years, but I haven't been able to wear it over here yet because it was in my stuff in my uncle's house in Oklahoma all last year. So clearly it didn't make the first cut. So I was really excited to do it. They were really comfortable and they looked nice, and I wore the right shoes. So even when I was on my feet all day, I was ecstatic. And so again, made me happy. The bud is going to be something that you're looking forward to, something that is emerging opportunity, something that is out there on the horizon. I know this is a little bit of like an ominous cartoon, but I am not going through life transitions, but a lot of my friends and close family, close friends are kind of in those weird spaces. And it's one of those whether I feel, you know, fortunate or maybe unfortunate that a lot of them have been sharing with me, but it's the same thing I've been getting the calls of, what do you think of this? And I think again, it ties into the do I have the mental and emotional capacity to help support them while being kind of so far away and that type of thing. So I love that they can come to me with those kind of thoughts and that they appreciate it. But at the same time, it's that striking balance as I'm looking for simplicity of just kind of downloading some of those things. And then the thorn, that is going to be the challenge, the something that is taking up too much time, energy, or effort, something that didn't go so well, something that maybe it was a roadblock, speed bump. I'm going to refer to it as the electric bill. It's not the price of the electric bill. I'm not here to get on that like utility beef. It was the fact that I was sent in the span of like 24 hours, three different numbers of what was potentially due this month. And so that really irritated me because I was like, now I actually have to call somebody. They have very specific customer service hours. And you're like, I appreciate everything digitally and all these things, but I was like, at the end of the day, I don't care what it is. I just need someone to tell me what it is. So I spent a good 2 or 3 hours Friday dealing with this that I didn't want to deal with. But we've got it resolved. We'll move forward with it. But for everybody else, I would love to hear your rosebud thorns. If you want to share that in the chat, again, we're on page 30 in your May journal because we want to certainly celebrate all of those roses with each and every one of you. Get excited about the upcoming buds as well as provide some support, thoughts, just extra prayers for some of those thorns that you're navigating. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Love seeing and appreciate that everyone is so comfortable sharing all these things. A lot of you all are, as returning socialers, I feel very much invested parasocially in your life. Just seeing kind of the progress that you're making, getting excited for all of the kind of end of the year stuff. I saw earlier a big thing on teacher appreciation. I know we have a lot of amazing educators amongst us. So I know this is one of those chaotic times for each and every one of you. But then again, seeing some of the upcoming celebrations, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays there. And then again, some of the thorns to spring means storms. So unfortunately, all the storms, all those things, and then just kind of all of maybe the other emotional and mental tools that are out there. But I am a big fan of the rosebud thorn just in the fact of I may not be able to solve everything as much as I would like to, but just the simple act of writing it down and putting it out into the universe Same thing with, I feel like my jaw unclenches a little bit, my shoulders sit a little bit less up in my ears and those type of things. And so I feel like it's always great to just be out there and then realizing that there's some commonality and connection amongst our group here if someone's kind of going through something somewhat similar. So it always makes me feel a little less alone. And so now we're going to move into our weekly planner. So this is going to be page 32 and 33 in your May journal. And the way I frame this every single time is to start and ask yourself, what do you need this week? And that's because sometimes what you need is going to be different from week to week. Sometimes what you need is the consistency and the stability, because as we all know, each week is going to be different. Each week is going to bring a different set of variables. So sometimes what you need is exactly written on page 32 and 33. Sometimes what you need is something completely different and completely repurposed. And sometimes what you need is a break from some of those sections. And even I have in the past, I didn't get to the week and I was completely fine with that. I didn't need it. And I've torn those pages out, which I know sounds, again, breaking up with perfection to an extreme, but it was that out of sight, out of mind kind of concept that I needed. So definitely, if you get a little lost, a little stuck, obviously we love the inspiration that's provided in the examples that we include, but also in the chat. But also sometimes it's don't make something out of nothing. Make it simple, and that can be, again, embracing the simplicity of it. But also, again, I know that there can be an absolute disconnect between physically feeling it is simple, but then the emotional and mental strategy required to make it simple. And then, as always, as I move through these examples, let me know if I need to go back, and please continue to share your responses in your chat as you see fit, just because this is your time to spend that time with your journal. It can be getting the pages done. It could be just sitting in the chat. It can be listening to the music. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. There are no due dates on these, so take what you need. So we'll start at the top of page 32 with this week I want to feel. I always like to have a question because I am never short of any sort of answer. So I always like to ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? Because this is my opportunity to take ownership as well as provide myself a goal. So as I'm experiencing those roses and buds and thorns of the week, I can come back to this kind of ownership and mantra and be like, nope, this is how you wanted to feel this week. So what do we need to adjust to get you back to this? And so sometimes that is your word of the year. Sometimes it's the word of the month. Sometimes it's the same word that you had last week. Sometimes it is 1% better, 5% happier, 15% hydrated. Maybe it is start somewhere. Maybe it is a specific definition. Maybe you need a different word for a different day. Maybe you want to feel less of something and more of something else. Maybe it's a fun doodle. Maybe it is a sticker because those stickers are worth 1,000 words. And so the idea of that. So let me know in the chat. I'll turn on a quick song. How do you want to feel this time next week? And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I love the intentional optimism that asking ourselves how we want to feel this time next week can kind of create. So now that we have this essential foundation, just because I treat it as a traditional, as like a quintessential foundation for how I'm going to structure my week, I know a couple of our other facilitators will actually come to this section last, and this will be like their summary based on the goals and the to-dos and all of the other pieces that it's going to come back, and based on of all of that, this is how they're going to feel. So again, it's more of the like causation versus the manifestation. So again, no right or wrong way to do this. And so now we're going to stay again on page 32, but we're going to combine the weekly major three goals section and the weekly to-dos, just because I have found a lot of folks will do those kind of hand in hand. I tend to do them certainly in tandem. And so maybe for these tend to be the mental and emotional reminders that I need to give myself so that I can feel this the way I want to feel this time next week. And then overlay the things of how I'm going to accomplish that with the to-do list and the habits and activities. Great way to do this is with categories. So maybe you have a professional goal, a mind goal, a body goal. Maybe again, these are just those larger reminders that you want to choose novelty, release stagnation, cultivate learning, or even embrace some of the alliterations of the frog, the fun, and the fierce. The middle section is one from one of our regular socialers, Quinn, who wanted to focus on planning. And so all of her to-dos fed directly into this one large goal, and kind of brought it that way. So I feel like you don't always have to have three. Maybe you want to have two, maybe you have one, maybe you want to zoom in on a particular thing that you really need to kind of set your mind and focus on to accomplish. Maybe there are three goals that you want to achieve each day. So you have an early one, a midday one, and an evening one. The bottom left one is, as I referred to it, a Silk and Sonder Traducan, because you have the three different categories. You are embracing each of those because the word of the way they wanted to feel was embrace, and so it was embracing, planning, doing, and peacefulness, and then taking those three categories, how you want to accomplish those, putting them with the three to-dos that are going to help support that, all in a bingo board. So like I said, Silk and Sonder Turducken in the spring. So you can obviously gamify a lot of these things. Maybe it is just self-care focus. Maybe it is things you want to stop. And then again, maybe it is just those really lovely stickers with just those overall, what do you need to feel the way you want to feel this time next week? Or you can repurpose it with affirmations. I think Nicole, yours is also the bottom left one as well, with just kind of some phrases and mantras and affirmations to help support your goals for the upcoming week as well. And then you move into the weekly to-dos. For me, I want to throw my to-do list out the window a few times. So that's where we're gonna ditch our to-do list, wear matching sweats, and read for 4 hours. But I would like to put that on my to-do list. So it may or may not be there. But my to-do list tends to change obviously week to week based on the things that I do. I am more of a to-da person instead of to-do. The difference between the to-das and the to-dos was when you celebrated, because either way they are all to done. I also fully embrace the Eisenhower matrix when I have just a bunch of random things that need to get done. But I do not delete anything. Instead, I will have the do, the decide, the delegate, and the delay. And that's just because I'm the only one who can do a lot of these things. And if I put it on a to-do list, it's got to get to done. So I figure out how to do it and how to embrace it. You can also embrace the Pomodoro technique, which I do think is a really great way if you are embracing the physical simplicity of decluttering. Set a timer for however long, spend some time there, spend a time in different areas, and then move forward with it. Maybe you just need to recategorize your to-dos. So breaking up your to-do list into your needs and your wants. There's another example on the next slide that has the work goals and the personal goals broken into the need and the want. But again, maybe what you need is a break from to-dos. And so maybe it's a sticker, maybe it's an affirmation, or maybe it is a restructure because you're like, Katie, this is not big enough for my to-do list. So it lives on a different section or a different page. And maybe again, embracing the to be's, the not to do's. Maybe you need to hit some of those weekly wins, weekly roses type things. So I would love to hear how you are potentially either pairing up these goals and to do sections, or if you do things a little bit different. Are you a creature of habit, so to speak, and you use kind of the same style, same process? And I always am looking for advice for to-dos that keep getting stuck on the to-do list and how I move it to a to-done pile. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And so we're going to stay on page 32, but now we're at that habits and activities section. And the way I use this section is I am a creature of habit. I have certainly said that many, many times in these socials. So I don't change up my habits and activities very much. I have the same now four things that I want to do every single day. And so I track them on my monthly trackers. These are the four things that I want to do every single day. And then when I pull them over into my weekly setup, I now add the lens of reality. How much time am I realistically going to be able to allocate for these four things that I want to do every single day? And so the four things are: I want to move every day, I want to journal every day, I want to read every day, and I want to find the sun every day. And so I've also we've had a lot of like cloudy days recently, so I've had to get creative with finding the sun. And so now I've associated with the finding something that gives me that warm, fun feeling. So I'll have like a random dance party with a playlist or watch a movie that always makes me happy, makes me cozy. So that's how I've had to get creative, and I have enjoyed the challenge of getting creative, but at the same time, not changing my routines or habits too much, but making it still more of that simplified conscious effort to make time for each of these things every single day so that they're just kind of built into my core day to day. And so it's really been helping me with kind of prioritization, but really I've just found so much joy and excitement and authenticity and vitality and making sure that I hit all four of these four things each day. And so you can look at it from that perspective. Maybe you want to set a goal for that. Maybe you want to do something 5 times, 4 times, 3 times, 2 times, 1 time per day, or even per week. Maybe this is not a week that you want to do anything because you're recovering. You've hit a transition point or a new milestone that was just going to require your attention elsewhere. Maybe you're on vacation. Maybe you have family that's visiting. Or again, maybe you're physically unavailable to do a lot of these things, so you can put a sticker there. You can bring in some of those positive affirmations. I like the structure that you maybe have different weekday goals versus weekend goals. And again, just because there are 5 things listed does not mean you have to have five. Maybe you have three, maybe you have four, maybe you just have one. And then, as always, I love this 5 days to schedule every single month. So I always challenge you if you need maybe to add something, have you scheduled something like this week? So maybe it's an unplug day, maybe it's a self-care day, maybe it's that reset day. Certainly with the clean, organize. I feel like this is the week. Everyone is, all signs are pointing to declutter and do some sort of spring cleaning. So maybe this is the reset week to include one of those days there, or even just a fun day. And then you all know, sucker for iconography. And so I've been also embracing the kind of bucket list concept. I've repurposed my expense tracker and sleep tracker to include these bucket list ideas. And again, a lot of these are not necessarily revolutionary. These are things that you've just kind of are already incorporating it. And so I think it's really fun to kind of notice some of those things that you already kind of do, or at least celebrating what you've already done without having to, again, rewrite or restructure your routine on a regular basis, unless that is what you need this week. And then maybe we've got some other kind of goals or mantras with the adventure list and some of the self-care goals and self-care reminders. So I'm going to give you some times to work on your habities, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. A fun fact, my sister plays the cello. So we do. We have our little quartet. I've definitely been in my like chamber music happy place. So you'll you'll see quite of that if you come to my socials. But Thank you, everybody. We are finishing page 32. We are now going to flip over to page 33, and I am going to combine this entire page because, in my mind, this is the B side. So we just listened to the A side of that amazing record. And while these are great in and of themselves, you can have a few gems on the B side, but for the most part, I do not use the B side. But with some of the traveling, I actually have used it recently because it helps me with packing. So for that particular meal plan, you can use it as absolutely, yes, as intended as a scheduled meal plan, or you can use it as a meal tracker, kind of something a little bit more in real time. Maybe you want to put all of your one good things just because you've had a rubbish week and you want to focus on all the good things that happen in the next week so you can celebrate those a little bit more. Maybe you need a spot for more of a meal plan for the soul. So the prompts can live here, the affirmations from the app, daily doodles, some sort of creative outlet that could be here. Music being good for the soul. Maybe this is where you put the song of the day. That's kind of your manifestation idea. Like I said, I've used this as a clothing and a travel packer for that type of thing. It's worked wonders for that. Maybe this is where you want haikus to live, kind of again, that creative outlet. The mind body health plan, again, is something that you can either plan ahead for or do something in real time. And don't worry, I'll come back to all of these examples. So if I need to go back to a particular slide, put it in the chat, let me know. But maybe it's again embracing the alliteration of the week. So if you need inspiration from Thursdays for a thoughtful reflection Thursday, a seize the weekend Saturday, a self care Sunday, I love the simple elegance of asking yourself what you feel, and therefore this is what you need at different times during the day. Maybe that's something that you do when you reflect as soon as you get up, or at the end of your day, kind of that. Maybe it's a highlight of the day. Maybe you just need that extra motivation. The one on the far left is one of our digital examples. I'm starting to kind of try and incorporate some of those just so what it would look like there with just the reminders of what they're going to do. And actually, they covered not only the mind body health plan section, but also the shopping list. So when it comes to kind of rewriting and repurposing these sections, no rules. Again, bringing in some more bucket list ideas, reading logs. Maybe this is a reminder, unplug. Maybe you're focusing on those 7 types of rest. Like I said, if you couldn't tell the type of vibe I had last week, I brought in these bad day reminders. And of course, they are overlaid with elegant sweet treats. So maybe that'll make me feel better, as well as we start moving into those events that come with kind of into school year, new holidays. The spring is for all of those special events, kind of reminders for how to drain our social batteries because sometimes you are physically tired, but it is not from a physical thing. It is from those other types of rest that are required. And then you've got the shopping list. So this can go hand in hand with your meal plan or hand in hand with your packing list. But you can put in, this is where a lot of the bingo boards live, pick a theme, pick a fun function and turn it into a bingo board. So maybe you have a spring bingo board, maybe you have a birthday coming up. So you're going to have a birthday bingo. Maybe it is the cleaning bingo. And then maybe these are the to be reminders. Maybe it's the social check in component. Like I said, I feel like that is where I've been spending a lot of my mental and emotional energy. I love doing it, but certainly something to be aware of. And then maybe a glimmer bingo, the self care ideas, quotes, and again, just the fun stuff there. And so I'm going to give you some time to work on all of these. I'll see you soon. And then the very last section on page 33, the I am loving, this is your opportunity to simplify your life by just acknowledging something that you are loving. So if you would want to share in the chat, I would love to read what you are currently loving. These are kind of my attitudes at the moment. Like I said, I'm still embracing my snail girl spring, so you'll see some snails through all of my socials. But with that being said, can you believe that we reached the end? It goes by so quickly. And I mean, simple celebration on the fact that I nailed the timing on this one. I'm usually last minute. If you would like to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app, we would love to see your pages if you want to share them. You guys provide us with such great inspiration. That's why these Silk and Sonder events are so much fun. The socials are so fantastic. And then again, we still have the AI component. And then Meha actually has an upcoming live demo on Tuesday, the 13th, with the burning out and what your personality has to do with it, as well as we have an exclusive coming up. There will be a social tomorrow for another weekly setup. I will be hosting that one as well. Don't worry, it'll be different than this one. Slightly, still the same, but somewhat different. This is a copy of my playlist. I will include the link to the Spotify playlist there. I keep track of all of my social playlists. So if you need a quick little 30-minute something based on either the month or the theme, they're all there. And we hope to see you at a future event. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your Saturday. You guys have an amazing rest of your weekend. I cannot wait to jump into the month of May with each and every one of you. We're going to have a great May. We're going to have a great spring, and we will see you all soon. Bye.
Woke up with sunshine dancing on my face. Coffee in my cup, starting up the day. Footsteps on the street, music in the breeze. Every little moment feels like it's made for me. At night, I grab surfing. It's the